there's any confusion, I am not Nick Saban, okay? He has a lot more hair than I do. So I want to clarify that. This is Ben Howland in Starkville, Mississippi. Uh, but it's great to talk to y'all. I'm so excited to get the news yesterday about the November 25th start for our games this season. It's only really, 15 days difference than what it was going to normally be, which is the 10th. I think it's very prudent what they did. I think it's smart because 75% of all schools, the normal students will be gone, and it kind of forms a safer environment for your players moving forward. And I'm just excited for basketball again. It was just devastating and heartbreaking to finish our season the way it finished last year without a real finish. And, we had put ourselves in a position, in the best position since I've been here as the coach, which is to have a double bye in the SEC tournament. So it was really, something that I'll always regret that we didn't get to play those games. But we're very excited. The team's excited. A couple of changes in that you can play up to 27 games now. So basically, you lose 4 games by the November 25th start. We're able to start practice October 14th. So this is a lot like it was back when I got into coaching. It used to be we played the Friday after Thanksgiving was the first game, and we started practice on October 15th. And so we're kind of, back to the future in terms of, how we're doing it now. I like that the NCAA allowed us 4 extra hours per week the coming 3 weeks prior to practice, starting on the 21st. So now we'll have 12 hours, 4 of weight training, and then 8 of on-the-floor activities, basketball, leading up to the 14th start for us. Questions?
We'll go ahead and get started with Paul, and then we'll go to Joel. So Paul, go ahead and lead us off.
Coach Howland, Robert decided to stay in the draft. How much of a look will DJ get at that wing spot, or will you try to play him some at the 2 guard as well?
You know what? Today, if we were starting today, I would start DJ as the 3, Iverson at the 2, and Davon Smith at the 1. So we would start, small but quick on the perimeter, and there'll be matchup difficulties in those respects, but I think we also have a lot of advantages. That's a very quick, explosive lineup with those 3 guys on the perimeter. And then we'll also, be playing a number of different guys as a 3 when DJ slides over to the 2. Iverson would be the backup point when Davon's out, and so that's kind of how it's going to formulate. We've got 7 new players this year on scholarship from where we were a year ago. So we've had a big roster change. We're incredibly young. I'm excited about this group. They've done a phenomenal job in terms of the weight room and conditioning and strength training. They've done a great job on the floor for us. We can't keep the gym open for them long enough because of the COVID protocols, which I hope will start to loosen up as we get closer to real practice.
Go ahead, Joel.
Okay. It was actually Joe, not Joel on there, so I hope that's okay, Joe. I didn't mean to hop in front of you there, man. But no, you mentioned some of the youth on this team, but whether it's Derek Fountain or Garcia, or who's some of the freshmen that have really, jumped out, or that you really expect to have a big impact on things this year?
Well, Davon is the one that jumps out the most, and he's a true point. Really has a great feel for the position. Phenomenal athlete. Highly decorated coming out of high school. And then I just go right down the list. I really like one of the guys that's really stepped out in terms of his ability to score and shoot is Keiondre Montgomery from Forest Hill. He's a good shooter, really a hard worker. He's done a great job. Cameron Stevens has been very good for us in terms of his effort in defensively. We really like Anderson Garcia a lot from Hamilton Heights, originally from the Dominican Republic. 6'7", long, good athlete. And those guys are all learning. all the freshmen. I mean, the best thing about a freshman in our situation is they become sophomores. We're developing players here, and these guys are all doing a great job, working hard. They've all got some real positives. One thing I was really excited about, we had 4 of our freshmen prior to Derek Fountain getting here. So that would be Keiondre, Davon, Cameron, and Anderson all had a running vertical over 40 inches in their test. So they're good athletes. We have good, athletic kids there. But I really like them. And then we have, Jaylen Johnson, who transferred in as a 5th-year player from Louisiana. Prior to that, he was at St. Louis, who's a very good shooter. He gives us a guy who can knock down 3-point shots. I think he's going to be vying for a lot of playing time because of his experience and understanding of the game. And he's done a good job. He's a great, work ethic, really, really good work ethic. I love how hard he works and what he brings to the table in that respect. He's going to be a good player. And then, Tolu Smith sat out for us last year, but Tolu has been very good and dominant inside. He's improved a lot from when he got here a year ago. He's really stepped up. I like what Quentin Post has done. Quentin a year ago was 211 pounds when he arrived here from the Netherlands. He's now 240 pounds and has really done a great job in the weight room, really building his body up. He can shoot the ball from the perimeter. Still has a lot to learn. We have a transfer in Javian Davis who transferred from Alabama, who is going to be, I think, a real contributor for us as well. And then we're all anchored inside by Abdul. And, I like Abdul a lot in terms of what he brings to us. We know what we have in him. We've got one of the best defending big guys in the SEC. He, I think, was the second leading shot blocker in conference games last year and #1 offensive rebounder in conference games. So we expect a big year out of him and a lot of leadership.
You mentioned Javian. Is any word on him yet as far as his,
No, that's still in the process. It's still processing his waiver. I have, a lot of optimism that will all, work out.
We'll go ahead and go to Joe, and then we'll go to Garrick. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned it was kind of back to the future as far as the preparation timeline that you guys have. Can you expand upon that? Like, do you feel like you'll have plenty of time to, get this team ready, especially with all the turnover and the young players on the roster? Just your overall assessment of, starting Thanksgiving week and that October 14th first practice.
Well, I think it's nice to get an extra 12 hours in, like, as I mentioned on the onset. It was tough this summer. We started later. There's a lot of protocols dealing with the COVID, as there will be all season long. But as a coach, and any coach will tell you this, we want as much time as we possibly can because there's so much to try to put in before we play. And, the way the schedule looks right now, we're going to open up our season against Clemson. There's no easy games for us. From the 25th on, we've got a really tough, challenging schedule. But we'll make do like everybody else. We're going to be a very, very young team. We have 2 seniors in Abdul and Jaylen Johnson. And then everybody else is basically a sophomore or a freshman.
Ben, I don't know how much you know about your non-conference schedule from a finalized standpoint yet. You said you're probably going to open up against Clemson, but is the hope to get 27 games in as the NCAA?
Absolutely. We want to play 27 games. So we're now that the announcement came yesterday, originally that tournament that we're in, the MT was supposed to start on the 24th. So they're going to have to bump it a day. And we had discussed that with them weeks ago. Because the 25th was the date that we heard that was potentially most likely for the season to begin, and they said they'd be able to do that. So now we got to finalize that and see, in fact, if that is what's going to happen.
Do you have any idea from a seating capacity standpoint how many fans might be allowed into the hump, or is that still?
I don't. The only thing I know is that our state government will determine that, and it's 25% for football. So, I would assume right now that we may have as many as 25%. I think that would be the max. If it's less than that, then but I really don't know.
We'll go ahead and go to Bob Holt, and then we'll follow him up with Jerry Tipton on the call today. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, Coach, how you doing today?
Good, Bob. How are you?
Hanging in there. Hey, I know college teams can't go to Orlando for 3 months like these NBA teams have, but I've seen discussions or people saying maybe there could be a college bubble, like maybe over the Christmas break you go somewhere for a week or 10 days. You think that's realistic, or what are your thoughts on that possibility?
Well, I think there's a lot of money involved. I mean, I was told that the bubble, the way they set it up for the NBA, was $150 million. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what I was told by actually someone who knows in the NBA. They spent a lot of money. And now with the revenues being down because of, shortened seasons in football and lack of fans, I don't think money is, that flowing that easy. So the first thing I'd be concerned with is just the cost of it all. We have already enormous costs when you're talking about testing, and our testing will ramp up to 3 times a week once we start playing games. And obviously I'm hoping that we get to the saliva test eventually here, because I think that's much more easy to administer and actually cheaper. But those are questions for the medical professionals, and I'm just following that as best I can. But yeah, I've heard that, to answer your question, that some interest may be in trying to produce a bubble, and I just don't know. I mean, the schedule part of it. And now that we finally have a date to start, I think you're going to see a lot more emphasis coming from the athletic directors and leadership council and the oversight committee as to exactly what's happening with scheduling. And that'll probably be determined here in the next week or two.
Yeah, I got kind of a blast from the past question. I've been doing this series of top Razorbacks that play in the NBA, and actually number 1 runs tomorrow. You might be able to guess who that'd be. It's Moncrief.
Of course.
And you played against them twice, and I'd love to get your. I found some quotes from Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. So you'd be in good company if you were maybe talking about what it was like. You played against Sydney a couple times in the NCAA tournament. Wonder what your memories of that.
Well, he certainly doesn't remember me, okay? Because although I think I was fouling him once in Eugene, Oregon, from behind, he elbowed me in the head, and we got 2 shots out of it for a flagrant one. But what a great player! I mean, Sidney Moncrief was one of my favorite players watching NBA, which I love to watch the NBA. Those are the best players in the world, but played both sides of the ball. Great defensive player. I'm sure he was all defensive team in the NBA probably 10 times, an all-star. Just a phenomenal athlete. And maybe one of the greatest basketball photos ever is him cocking the ball back on Sports Illustrated the year they went to the Final Four with the triplets. We lost to Eddie Sutton's teams twice in the tournament when I played at Weber State for Neil McCarthy. The first year was in Eugene when they had Moncrief, Delphin Brewer, and then we lost them again the next year at Kansas. And they ended up playing Indiana State, who ended up beating them, Bird against Moncrief in college. But they had U.S. Reed, was a really good guard on that team. He might have been a freshman. But getting back to Sidney, man, he's one of the all-time greats in the history of the game, in my opinion, and would be a phenomenal player right now.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, Ben, I wonder with the later starting date, it kind of makes college basketball more of a one-semester sport. And I'm wondering what, if any, difference that makes in your mind.
Well, I think that, we started like that, as you know, Jerry. You, me, and Bob are old-timers here, okay? We've been watching this, doing this for a long time. And for so many years, it was always October 15th and the Friday after Thanksgiving. And that worked well. Then we started adding games. making the schedule a little bigger, which was fine. But I think, the way that we're doing the school year at Mississippi State, normally you come back after Thanksgiving and you finish finals. This year, because of COVID, everything will be done prior to when the students dismiss for Thanksgiving, which I think is great for them and really a nice change. But, the one semester sport is something they've always talked. I don't think it's that big of a deal for basketball. I really don't. I think we're used to it, and I think it's something that we've adjusted to really well. So I would hope that it'll go back to an earlier start a year from now, and hopefully we'll be back to normalcy. I'm reading Fauci's comments today, and he was saying that he expects a return to normalcy by the end of 2021. So I hope he's correct.
And I wonder too, from your UCLA days, I wonder what you think of the Pac-12 situation where COVID is a bigger deal in California, and you got the fires on top of that. How would that impact a coach or a player?
Well, I have a lot of family out in California, and I have two brothers in the Bay Area, and so you can barely breathe. It's just like unbelievable how bad the smoke is in Northern California. But yeah, the way that they've responded, the Pac-12, you see the Big Ten is now, going to play football, and I think the Pac-12 will follow suit. It's just such a, unique time in history. We've never had this before, and the number one thing is to keep the student athletes safe and to keep them as safe as possible, and that's what we're all trying to do. And yet, I think it's great that the SEC and the leadership, starting with our commissioner, have done a phenomenal job being very thoughtful, taking in all the information and trying to make the best decisions possible for the student athletes and for the game. And, our players were devastated last year when we couldn't finish our season. And I think we have a way in which we can do this, especially with the increased testing that every team will go through in our league, to keep each other safe and to have a season. Like, I love watching the NBA right now on TV. I'm a basketball Jones. I got to have it. And it's so fun. I can't wait for tonight to watch and see if the Celtics can, bounce back and beat Miami. It's just fun. It's fun for fans. It's fun for everybody. This is the greatest game in the world. And, it's just a joy. And watching your Kentucky boys in the playoffs right now, Murray and Hero, Bam, and then obviously Davis. I know that you have a lot of your fans watching these games. It's incredible.
Thanks.
You bet.
We'll go ahead and get it back to Paul, and then Joel, and then Brian. Go ahead, Paul.
I can't hear you.
What's the big step that Iverson has taken?
Great question. I think Iverson may have had, Paul, the best summer of anybody on our team. It's close. I thought Tolu, Abdul, but Iverson has just been relentless. He went out to stay with his uncle, who is a skill instructor and coach and played basketball beyond college for 15 years and was working out 3 times a day for a month in California. He has improved in every way. He's a much better shooter. A year ago, when he shot the ball, he had his left thumb, like a lot of kids do, amazingly, in his shot. So when he was shooting, it would come off both hands. I think a lot of kids, when they first learn to shoot a jump shot, aren't strong enough yet, and therefore they get some bad habits by using 2 hands on the ball. Well, he had a side spin rotation when it would come off, every third shot. And so we used to tape his hand, and multiple players on our team have had the same issue. He fixed it. His shot, his jump shot is so much better. I watched him the other day make 126 out of 150 shots from 3. He made 44, 42, and 40, or 42, whatever it is, 40 and 42 and 44. Just consistently in wide open, threes from different spots on the floor. So he's done a great job there. He's much more talkative on the floor. He's really doing a good job being a leader. I think he's a much better defender and is taking incredible pride in his defense. And he and Davon are going at it each day, and that's probably the best competitiveness we have in our practices right now, other than Tolu and Abdul, because they're getting each other better by pushing each other. And that's what you want. You want to have a team. You know, my best teams were always teams that had great competition within the practice. You know, when you had Aaron Aflalo going against Russell Westbrook or Westbrook going against Collison, et cetera, you know, that's what makes a team, you know, really improve, is great competition every day.
Coach, you mentioned Abdul there. Obviously, as a senior, going to be a key leader for the team. Never really been any question about him defensively. Do you feel like he's ready to maybe take another step offensively this year and be a little bit more of a scorer? I know, obviously, with Reggie being gone, you guys may need a little more production out of the post, maybe. So do you think Abdul might be ready to take a step forward on the offensive end?
Yeah, he's really taken that upon himself. Like, he's worked very hard in the offseason. I think you're going to see an increased role for him offensively, and him, most of all, be more aggressive. You know, his very first year here, we would beg him to shoot, and he wouldn't shoot. I mean, he was always just programmed to get an offensive rebound and kick it back out. And he's like, you know, we got to have you, you know, be more of a threat. And he's definitely doing that now in our practices.
Coach, when I look at this roster, it reminds me a lot of your second season here at Mississippi State, where you had to replace.
Don't say that. Don't say that. That was a bad year.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. Is that, you know, what's going to be different from, you know, that year versus this year, and, you know, what makes you think you can be more successful?
Well, you know, that year we lost three really good seniors in Gavin, Ware, Chicken, and Fred Thomas, and also Travis. And Travis is still playing and had a great career. We lost some good players, so we had no nucleus returning other than Q that had really been there. But right now we have Iverson, we have DJ, we have Abdul, we have Tolu. That's really the heart and soul of this team, those four guys. I just named four starters. Those are the guys, and so their leadership and how these young and new players have looked up to them have really helped. So we're a much better team than we were in year two when I was here, you know, with that group, where we had a bunch of freshmen coming in and then no nucleus to really learn from. And these guys are a nucleus from years past. I mean, Abdul's been on 3 straight teams that have, you know, 20 or more games and have been good teams. So it's a huge difference.
We'll go ahead and go back to Jerry.
Ben, I wonder what you thought of the ACC coach's idea of every Division I team being in the NCAA tournament, I assume, next spring.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but just not logistically possible. The amount of money that would cost. And again, I mean, it would be a huge cost to have that many teams in an NCAA tournament. It would be tens of millions of dollars, and then you'd also have the women's side, I'm sure, wanting to do the same thing, and it's just cost prohibitive. Nice concept, nice idea, but not, you know, cost. You know, it just can't happen.
Anything else for Coach before we let him go?
Thanks, guys. Fun to be getting ready for basketball.